is a customer in the context of KYC. In the context of KYC framework, the concept of customer has now been redefined. A customer is no longer just the one who has an account with the bank or a business relationship with the bank. It also includes the ones on whose behalf the account is maintained, that is a beneficial owner, the beneficiaries of transactions conducted by professional intermediaries such as stockbrokers, chartered accountants, solicitors, and any person entity connected with any financial transaction which can pose risk to the bank, say through a wire transfer, issue of high value DD, etc., are all customers of the banks. The Reserve Bank has prescribed that KYC policy of the bank should have the following key elements: customer acceptance policy, customer identification procedures, monitoring of transactions, and risk management. Customer acceptance policy. The salient features of this policy are like this. No anonymous or fictitious binomy accounts should be allowed. Banks are not to open or close accounts when unable to apply appropriate customer due diligence. Even for closing accounts, the bankers will have to apply due diligence. They should define parameters of risk perception to enable categorization of the customers. Documentation or information requirements for different risk categories have also been prescribed. Banks are required to prepare a profile of each customer. The circumstances where a customer is permitted to act on behalf of another person or entity should be spelled out. Identity of the customer does not match with those of criminal backgrounds, banned entities, terrorists, etc. The identification procedures include identifying the customer and verifying her or her identity by using reliable, independent source documents, data, or information. The banks must be able to certify the competent authorities that due diligence was observed based on the risk profile of the customer in compliance with the extant guidelines in place. Such risk-based approach is considered necessary to avoid disproportionate costs to banks and a burdensome regime for the customers. The nature of information documents required would also depend on the type of the customer, whether he is an individual, a corporate, a society, or like that. And we had to prescribe for each type of customer different things, like the customer identification procedure. When a customer is required, while establishing a banking relationship, a customer ID is required. While carrying out a financial transaction, as in the case of walk-in customer, that time also customer ID is required. When the bank has a doubt about the authenticity or veracity or adequacy of the previously obtained customer identification data, that time also the banks will insist on the proper identification. The PMLA requirements Act itself prescribes that banks should obtain an officially valid document. The officially valid documents are varieties of documents have been prescribed, like passport, driving license, permanent account number card, the voter's identity card, the UIDA letter, and Aadhaar card, NREGA card, like that, or any other document as may be notified by the central government. When there are suspicions of money laundering or financing of the activities relating to terrorism, or if there are doubts about the adequacy or veracity of previously obtained customer identification data, banks should review the due diligence measures once again. Then, for natural persons, the identification documents are like this: the PAN card, passport, voter's ID, which I already mentioned, voter's identity card, driving license, UIDI, Aadhaar, NREGA, etc. Identity card issued by their employer, that is also sufficient. Letter from a recognized public authority or public servant verifying the ID and address, that will also be sufficient. For salary class, letter of identity or address from the corporate or the entities of repute, that will also be sufficient. For natural persons, the address documents, telephone bills, bank account statement, letter from a recognized public authority, electricity bill, ration card, letter from the employer, rent agreement. Then even based on self-declaration, accounts can be transferred. One of the accounts, we said that among all these documents, one document would be sufficient for the identification and another document for the address.